Every great life begins in the moment someone chooses discipline over emotion. You want change? Then control your response. You want results? Then rule your habits. Because success is never owned. It is rented, and rent is due every single day. The reason most people don't get what they want isn't because they don't dream big enough. It's because they don't build the structure that sustains those dreams. Emotion might inspire you, but only discipline will keep you going when the excitement fades. This is the difference between wishing and winning, between temporary intensity and permanent transformation. Jim Rohn didn't become a global icon by chasing every feeling. He built his mind like a craftsman, carefully, relentlessly. One disciplined thought at a time. He understood something most people never grasp. Success is not a lucky break. It's a lifestyle. It's not passion. It's persistence. And persistence is born from habits, not hype. You say you're tired? That's not a reason. That's a symptom. You say you're not motivated today? Good. Because real change starts when motivation dies, when there's nothing left but your ability to show up, to do the thing anyway. That's when you begin to separate yourself from your old self, from the rest of the world, from the excuses that kept you small. We live in a culture that worships feelings. Follow your heart, they say. Do what feels right. But let me ask you, did Jim Rohn build his empire by doing what felt good? Or did he build it by doing what was necessary, especially when it was hard? Discipline is not suppression, it is direction. It's taking all that chaos, all that emotion, and giving it form, giving it a job, harnessing it like energy, and turning it into fuel. If you train yourself to act based on vision instead of mood, you become unstoppable. That's how you get from where you are to where you want to be. Not through inspiration, but through consistency. The daily, often boring, unglamorous consistency. And guess what? The world rewards that. The marketplace doesn't care how you feel. It cares what you produce. Jim Rohn would say, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better." And he meant it, because life isn't going to hand you convenience. It's going to test your resolve. It's going to expose your weaknesses. And that's not cruelty. It's opportunity. Every time you feel resistance, that's the signal. That's the exact place you grow. Don't let the softness of modern life dull your edge. Choose hard. Choose structure. Choose the path of most growth, not least resistance. Because the easiest path is the one that leads you nowhere. And if you're waiting to feel like it, stop. Discipline is doing it precisely when you don't feel like it. That's what rewires your identity. That's what tells your mind. We don't negotiate with weakness anymore. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped giving power to your feelings and started giving it to your vision? What could you build if you stopped quitting when it got uncomfortable? What kind of leader would you become if you stopped waiting for permission and started demanding more from yourself? Jim Rohn taught that success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. And who you become is defined not by your dreams, but by your disciplines. Not by your intentions, but by your execution. Not by what you say, but by what you repeat. So repeat greatness, repeat action, repeat commitment, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You don't rise by chance, you rise by choice. So choose discipline, choose direction, choose the power to move forward, without apology, without hesitation, without waiting another day. The world doesn't need another emotional reactor. It needs calm in chaos, fire with focus, willpower dressed in humility. And that begins with you. Your mind is a tool. Sharpen it. Your life is a path. Walk it. And your future? It is not found in fleeting moments of motivation. It is built brick by brick, in the quiet, consistent acts of someone who refuses to quit. Be that person. Today. Now, always. Everyone wants to change. Everyone wants results. But few are willing to execute. Not once, not twice, but every day. Discipline may build the foundation, but execution builds the house. Jim Rohn once said, "What is easy to do is also easy not to do." And that's the great trap. The greatest threat to your potential is not failure. It's inconsistency. It's making a decision on Monday and forgetting it by Wednesday. It's choosing a better life in your mind, but not moving an inch in your daily habits. We live in a world addicted to decisions. We love the feeling of commitment, the rush of motivation. We decide to change our diet, wake up earlier, write that book, start that business. And for a moment, we feel powerful. But power doesn't live in moments. It lives in momentum. Real growth is measured by what you do when no one is watching. Execution is the bridge between desire and destiny. You can want something with every part of your being, but unless you build the habits that back it up, it stays a wish. Jim Rohn understood this. That's why he taught the philosophy of action. Not just positive thinking, not just good intentions, but the daily, practical, measurable act of doing. Do you know the difference between the person you want to be and the person you are? Repetition. The one you admire didn't become that way by accident. They showed up. They followed through. Even when it was boring, even when it was thankless, even when it felt like nothing was happening. Especially then. Most people quit before the results arrive. They try for a week and declare it didn't work. But success is not instant. It's not convenient. It's not easy. It's earned through sweat, through silence, through invisible progress that compounds slowly. Execution is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Because every time you do what you promised yourself, you earn self-respect. And that is where confidence grows. Confidence isn't about talking yourself up. It's about trusting yourself because you've seen what you're capable of, consistently. Jim Rohn said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Not breakthroughs, just quiet repetition. Just the act of keeping promises to yourself. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. That's the true difference maker." Ask yourself, where have you replaced effort with excuses? Where are you waiting for motivation instead of building momentum? Where have you delayed action because it didn't feel perfect? Execution is the separation point. It divides the average from the exceptional, the committed from the casual, the fulfilled from the frustrated. This is the fork in the road. You want success? Then fall in love with the process, not the idea, not the applause, the grind, the repetition, the days you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. Decide once, execute daily. That's the formula. While others wait for the right time, you're out there doing. While they make plans, you make progress. And over time, your work becomes your confidence. Your consistency becomes your edge. Your actions write your identity. You stop being someone with goals and become someone who executes. So show up. Do the work, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. A doer, a finisher, a builder. A person who means what they say and proves it. Not just once, but every day. That's how you earn success. That's how you become unstoppable. Not by deciding, but by doing. You can do everything right. Read the books, write your goals, wake up early. But if your environment is against you, it will eat your progress alive. Jim Rohn said it best. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not just emotionally, literally. financially, mentally, spiritually. Most people lose not because they lack potential, but because they're surrounded by people and systems that subtract rather than multiply. Think about it. If you're trying to grow, but your circle is rooted in comfort, gossip, and excuses, you won't level up. Not because you're weak, but because the weight around you drags down your momentum. Environment is more powerful than motivation. You can't outwork toxic influence forever. Sooner or later, it seeps in. The jokes that belittle your goals, the subtle shaming when you say no to a party, the rolling eyes when you talk about changing your life. It may seem harmless, but it's erosion. And erosion is slow until it isn't. Jim Rohn didn't succeed in a vacuum. He built a life around growth. He chose mentors. He distanced himself from mediocrity, not because he hated people, but because he valued his future. Protecting your environment isn't arrogance. It's intelligence. It's not judgment. It's self-preservation. Look around. Do your surroundings reflect your vision? Or do they mirror your fears? Are you spending your mornings feeding your goals or your distractions? Your nights listening to growth or noise? Your weekends investing in your mind or numbing it? The small decisions you make every day become the world you live in. Execution isn't just about showing up. It's about creating a space where showing up feels inevitable, where progress is supported, not sabotaged, because willpower is a limited resource. But environment? That's the software running in the background, constantly influencing your behavior without you even noticing. Environment is more than people. It's your room, your phone, your social feed, your daily rituals, the words on your wall, the books on your shelf, the voices you allow in your ear. Every detail either reinforces your discipline or chips away at it. Want a better future? Audit your now. What apps steal your time? What voices get your attention? What habits fill your space? The answers are not neutral. They're shaping your identity whether you realize it or not. Jim Rohn emphasized the power of association. He knew that proximity shapes perspective, that spending time around driven people pulls you upward, even without words. Excellence is contagious, but so is mediocrity. The more time you spend in chaos, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. So curate your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. Unfollow the noise, redesign your space, choose who gets your energy. You don't owe access to anyone who doesn't respect your evolution. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're not cutting people off. You're cutting off permission slips to sabotage. Growth demands boundaries. Boundaries demand courage. And courage demands repetition. Because here's the truth. The mind becomes what it's most exposed to. If you want clarity, feed it silence. If you want hunger, feed it inspiration. If you want discipline, build systems that remove choice. Turn discipline into design. Because when something is designed well, discipline becomes effortless. Jim Rohn didn't become a legend through willpower alone. He designed a life that aligned with his purpose. And that made excellence not just possible, but inevitable. He wasn't lucky. He was intentional. Over and over again. You can do the same. But first, you must stop hoping your environment will change. You must stop negotiating with chaos. You must change it. Radically. Deliberately. Unapologetically. No more scrolling into distraction. No more conversations that drain. No more inputs that confuse your vision. Cut the noise. Guard your focus. Make your environment a mirror of your highest self, not your weakest habits. Read more. Listen better. Speak less. Move with intention. Treat your mind like a garden and your environment like the soil. If the soil is dry, toxic, or filled with weeds, nothing will grow. So you fix the soil, You enrich it. You nourish it. Today, draw the line. Upgrade your circle. Clean your space. Rewrite your rituals. Filter your inputs. Rebuild the code that runs your days. Don't just build a better mindset. Build a better world around it. Because when your environment supports your vision, discipline becomes natural. Focus becomes effortless. Progress becomes the default setting. This is how you protect your mind. This is how you win. Not once, not occasionally, but every single day. Everyone has goals. Few have standards. And that's the difference. Your life does not rise to the level of your dreams. It settles at the level of your standards. Jim Rohn said, "Don't set your goals too low. If you don't need much, you won't become much." That one line explains why most people stay stuck, not because they don't want more, but because they accept less. They say they want success, but tolerate procrastination. They want discipline, but accept distraction. They want to change, but keep hanging around the same habits, the same routines, the same people. Wanting more without expecting more from yourself is how mediocrity survives. Raising your standards is not about being perfect. It's about refusing to live beneath your potential. It's about drawing a line and saying, "From this point on, I don't allow certain things into my life, not because I'm better than others, but because I'm finally taking myself seriously." Jim Rohn didn't just teach motivation, he taught structure. He knew that success wasn't just about effort, it was about expectations. You don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate. And your standards define what you tolerate. Low standards create loose boundaries. Loose boundaries create inconsistent habits. And inconsistent habits create disappointing results. So, what are you tolerating? People who waste your time? A sleep schedule that ruins your focus? Excuses you keep recycling? Habits that undermine your growth? It's time to stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You don't rise by accident. You rise by demand. And that demand must start with you. You set the tone, you set the rhythm, you set the bar. And when your standards go up, your decisions change, your language changes, your posture changes, your energy shifts. Because you're no longer living reactively, you're living intentionally. High standards are not just a mindset, they are a lifestyle. They show up in your morning routine, your discipline when no one's watching, the quality of your thoughts, the boundaries you protect, the people you keep, the content you consume, the goals you won't shrink for anyone. And no, it won't be easy. It will feel uncomfortable at first, because your old life will try to pull you back. Your friends might not understand. Your schedule will resist. Your habits will fight. But every time you enforce a higher standard, you're casting a vote for your future self. That's what Jim Rohn taught. You don't need to do massive things. You need to stop allowing small compromises. You need to stop saying, "It's okay just this once," because just this once is how people ruin their momentum. So what do high standards look like? It's turning off distractions when it's time to work. It's saying no when you'd rather please others. It's eating with discipline when comfort food calls. It's speaking with clarity when laziness tempts silence. It's reading instead of scrolling. It's planning your day instead of winging it. It's protecting your rest like it's a priority, not a luxury. It's keeping your space clean because your environment reflects your mindset. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than you were willing to be yesterday. Jim Rohn often reminded his audience, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. But those disciplines only exist if you set the standard that says, "This is how I live now." The strongest people aren't the loudest, they're the most consistent. And here's the truth, your standards are contagious. When you raise your level, others feel it. Some will rise with you. Others will resent you. That's okay. Let your growth filter your circle. Let your clarity scare away confusion. Let your standards speak louder than your explanations. Because one day, when people ask how you did it, you won't say, "I had the best plan." You'll say, "I stopped allowing less." So raise the bar, hold the line, protect your standard like your future depends on it, because it does. In a world that encourages shortcuts and celebrates mediocrity, be the one who quietly, relentlessly lives above it. Because the standard you set is the future you build, and your life will never exceed the level you demand from yourself. Not once, not ever. Self-respect isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And most people never build it because they keep breaking promises to themselves. They say they'll wake up early, then hit snooze. They say they'll work out, then skip it. They say they'll focus, but get distracted. And every time they do, they don't just lose time, they lose trust. Trust in themselves. And when you stop trusting yourself, you stop growing. Jim Rohn once said, "The greatest form of discipline is self-respect." Because discipline isn't punishment, it's proof. Proof to yourself that you can do what you said you would do. Proof that your words mean something. That you are someone worth listening to, even when no one else is around. Success doesn't require applause, it requires alignment. Between what you say and what you do. Between your values and your behavior. Between your future and your present. That's why most people struggle. Not because they're lazy, but because they've broken their own word too many times. They've built a relationship with themselves that's full of doubt, full of hesitation, full of backpedaling and excuses. And now, even when they try, they don't believe themselves anymore. And if you can't believe you, who will? You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. You can't earn respect if you keep disrespecting your own standards. That's why discipline matters. Not for control, not for perfection, but for power. The power to say something and mean it, to set a goal and honor it, to decide and follow through. Self-discipline is how self-respect is born. Every small act of discipline is a brick in your inner foundation. Every time you say no to comfort, you say yes to your future. Jim Rohn didn't teach empty hype. He taught responsibility, he taught ownership, and he taught that the only person you ever truly lead is yourself. That's where everything else begins. So what does that look like? It looks like waking up when you said you would, not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. It looks like finishing the work, not because it's exciting, but because you promised yourself you would. It looks like walking away from things that insult your potential, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's not about proving anything. It's about knowing, deep down, that your actions match your words, that you are reliable, that you can count on you. That's the most powerful belief you can have. Because when you believe yourself, the world starts to believe you too. But it starts small. It starts with not skipping the workout, not ignoring your budget, not justifying the cheat day, not breaking your own momentum. It starts with recognizing that every time you say, "just this once," you are trading long-term pride for short-term relief. And that trade is always too expensive. Discipline doesn't restrict you. It frees you. From the guilt of inconsistency, from the weight of regret, from the anxiety of always falling short. It gives you clarity, strength, inner peace. Because when you keep your promises, your mind stops doubting. Your heart stops resisting. Your life starts moving. Jim Rohn knew this. That's why he called discipline the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Because without it, all you have is potential. And potential never paid the bills. Respect yourself enough to follow through. Love yourself enough to raise your standards. Trust yourself enough to try again, even after you failed. This isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to live on the ground. It's about standing up every time with more resolve, more integrity, more faith in your ability to change. You want to feel confident? Then stop looking in the mirror and start looking at your behavior. That's where real confidence grows. In the quiet places, the daily decisions, the invisible victories. When you do what you say, again and again, confidence becomes who you are. Respect becomes your default. And your life changes. Not because someone saved you, but because you finally showed up for you. And here's the deeper truth. Self-respect is the foundation for every other kind of success. It shapes how you speak to others, how you pursue your goals, how you recover from setbacks. It's not about pride. It's about knowing you've earned your own trust. That's the kind of inner peace no one can give you, and no one can take away. So the next time you're tempted to quit, ask yourself, what would someone who respects themselves do? Then do that, again and again, until it becomes who you are. Most people wait. They wait for the perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect opportunity, the perfect feeling. But here's the truth. If you're waiting to feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't wait for all lights to turn green before you leave the house." The world doesn't reward intentions, it rewards movement. And movement only happens when you stop waiting and start doing, especially when you don't feel like it. Because that's what separates the average from the exceptional. Not talent, not luck, but the ability to move without motivation, to act without perfect conditions, to train yourself to follow through regardless of how you feel. Every time you act when you don't feel like it, you get stronger. You become more disciplined. You prove to yourself that you are not ruled by feelings. You are ruled by purpose. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the engine. And successful people don't wait for sparks. They build engines. Jim Rohn didn't live an extraordinary life because he was always inspired. He built habits that worked whether he was inspired or not. He understood that emotion is a terrible master, but a useful servant. So what does that look like in real life? It's getting out of bed when it's dark and cold. It's working on your craft when no one's watching. It's saying yes to effort when your body screams. It's choosing growth over comfort, clarity over confusion, persistence over perfection. Most people live on pause. They're waiting for confidence before they take action. But action builds confidence, not the other way around. You don't wait to become the kind of person who gets results. You become that person by doing the work anyway. Think about the strongest people you know. They don't move because they feel like it. They move because they made a decision. And that decision is no longer up for debate. When you stop negotiating with your excuses, you start building your identity. When you stop waiting for the right time, you start becoming the right person. And when you start showing up regardless of how you feel, you become unstoppable. Jim Rohn taught this: consistency over intensity. Not one big day, but every day. Not epic action, but repeatable routines. Not hype, but habits. Because anyone can act when they're fired up. Few act when they're tired, discouraged, or afraid. That's what defines you. Not how you act when it's easy, but how you move when it's hard. So what does this mean for you? It means your future is not waiting for permission. It's waiting for movement. It's not asking you to feel ready. It's asking you to be relentless. It means you stop asking, "Do I feel like it today?" and start asking, "Who do I want to become no matter what?" You don't need to feel it. You need to do it. Because action rewires your identity. Action teaches your mind that you are someone who follows through. And that belief is more powerful than any burst of motivation. Motivation fades, but habits compound. Jim Rohn built his legacy not on how he felt, but on what he did. And if you want to change your life, don't chase feelings. Chase follow-through. That's how confidence is built. That's how results are earned. That's how you become someone you respect. Don't wait. Don't wish. Don't wonder. Move. Now, because if not now, when? If not you, who? And if you still think you need permission, let this be it. Let this be your signal, your switch, your starting point. You will never regret starting, but you will always regret waiting. Waiting has a cost, and the bill always comes due. Time doesn't pause because you hesitate. Life doesn't slow down because you're unsure. The only way to catch up is to begin. Start messy. Start scared. Start small. Just start. Because momentum only comes from movement. Clarity only comes from action. And progress only comes from choosing to go anyway. Jim Rohn's life wasn't built on perfect timing. It was built on persistent action. Not just in the spotlight, but in the quiet, in the repetition, in the daily decision to show up without fanfare, without motivation, without excuses. And that's the path for you too. So no more waiting. No more rehearsing the version of you hope to become. Be that person today. In action, in discipline, in movement. Start, move, repeat. That's the formula. That's the truth. That's your way forward. And it begins now.